Welcome back to the Imperfection Wins Show. I'm your host, Sam Willing, and I am so excited to be here today with Leah Kaepernick, founder of Meditate, Move, Make. And as I just literally discovered a couple of seconds ago, she has radio and producing experience. So she is,
I'm a huge fan of that right there.
huge fan.
Right
I feel
now.
so.
I'm amongst greatness.
I know. I feel so much more relaxed right at this moment, having two people in the room with me that have way more experience than I do. So, welcome, Leah, and I'm so glad you're here.
Yeah.
And I would love for you just to jump in and tell us a little bit about you.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Sam. It's so fun to be here, and what an honor. Oh, gosh. So my Midwest accent will probably come out, just as a heads up. I just said, oh, gosh. Just a little bit of nerves being on. Yeah, as Sam said, I am a producer, but typically in my previous work, had worked for 10 years in commercial production, which has a very long runway for editorial. So, I'm taking Sam's cues here. She's just a pro. We're live. It's all good. But yeah, Benny, pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me. Great show.
Glad having you.
Yeah. I started Meditate, Move, Make really recently. It was a little bit like your story, Sam. I kind of looked at my life and said, what am I doing? How is production and what I do in the commercial production world really integrating with who I am? And as a producer, it's a pretty demanding job. So you really do need to come from a place of being integrated, mind, body, practice, whatever that looks like for you. You're going to have the best results when you're coming from an authentic place. So for me, I've always been in that sort of spiritual realm of trying to bring my full self to work.
Mm-hmm.
And Meditate, Move, Make was the sort of formalization of that. For me, it meant, I felt like I have all these hobbies. I'm also a producer. What does this mean? Are these businesses? Are they hobbies? Should I pick one? And I went through a big transition last year, and I realized, what I need to be happy every day is to move, to meditate, or, just chill out for a minute, and to make something, to make some art, to dabble, to try something out, whatever that process looks like. I need to meditate, move, and make.
Yeah.
And how do I do that? And here I am. And it's really a big integration of all these different skills that I really enjoy doing.
So, Leah, you left your corporate job to start this company, correct?
Yeah, I mean, more or less. I've been a freelance producer for a while in Seattle. So, yeah, kind of stepping back from that role as a full-time pedal to the metal, 18-hour shoot days, that sort of thing. And really saying, okay, no, I need a little more breath. I need a little bit more of me present in this work.
And you do, I know one of the things you do is corporate mindfulness.
Yeah.
And that's really intriguing to me.
Yeah.
I know we're going to dig into mindfulness and meditation and what that all means today also. But can you tell us just a little bit about, I know you have several different things that you do that range from, corporate mindfulness programs to, I know you're a Pilates teacher. And so I find it really fascinating that you've been able to blend those sort of three things that you said you need into your work. So would you just run us through some of the different ways that you work with people?
Yeah, and I'll set this up by just saying it's by no means perfect. And every day I'm kind of like...
That's the point of the show, lady.
Yeah. Every day I'm like, okay, what can I do tomorrow that might make it a little better flow? Or that felt a little funny today. Maybe I'll prep in this way tomorrow.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, to address the question, I started kind of meditating in whatever form, finding space for myself, trying to purposely relax initially. I didn't really know what it was, but I needed to take a moment to breathe.
Were you feeling like exceptionally stressed or anxiety? Was that what kind of started it?
Yeah. I mean, as a producer, you're working 8-10-hour days on a normal day, and then on shoot days, it's 18 to 24 plus. It's just nonstop.
Yeah.
And the producer role especially is not just being there to perform. It's what's the next 5 steps in the next day, and what does all my team need, and how can I get that for them? How can I anticipate their needs, right? So I was super good at that, but that was at the back burner of my own needs. And so there was a moment where I was like, oh, if I prioritize what I need as well, I can be a better producer. I can be
Yeah.
better for my team and so forth. So finding that space in the morning about 10 years ago when I started producing really made a big difference for me. And now I brought it recently into the workplace. I was working for a very, very large production company that I'm not sure I can say their name online. But yeah,
Sure.
I
I
start.
mean, people will look at
Okay,
your bios.
yeah, okay. So I started the meditation group with my friend Samir at HBO, and I wasn't hired to do that. I was
Yeah.
hired for a totally different ask. But being my authentic self in the workplace and trying to show up and bring my team together and solve for a really difficult ask meant that I needed to find unique ways to bring us together and to
Right.
get us talking.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, I want to do this. I want to take 5 minutes of my day and go in a conference room and chill out, right? So does anyone else want to do that? And
Mm-hmm.
Samir and I started having this conversation, and he was like, oh my gosh, that's totally on my to-do list as well. I just can't seem to get around to it. And I was like, well, what are you doing right now? Like all we need is an empty room and
Just go,
us,
right.
So it started there. And, we showed up at the same day. We had that same commitment to each other. Like, can you keep doing this? And that pause started to feel like a pretty substantial break in the afternoon. It felt like, oh, I'm coming back to my work refreshed instead of totally drained, waiting for the clock to run out, right? And we grew the team from like a couple of us to probably 15, 20.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, this needs to happen. People need this. They're curious.
Yeah.
How can I bring this space and breath and pause to other folks,
Mm-hmm.
When you start, I think it kind of echoes my fundamental belief that if you start showing up as yourself and saying, here's something I have. Do you need this?
Yeah.
Does this make sense to you? Do you need some of, I have this pie. Would you like a slice?
I love that. That's exactly how my experience with the podcast and now the radio show has been. It's interesting. I have sort of spent most of my life coloring in between the lines and like doing what I'm supposed to do and probably compartmentalizing, my whole self into pieces that I felt like were acceptable in different environments. And then with this, starting the podcast, it was like I kind of blew the lid off that and put myself out there. And I always tell people, I usually find myself talking about things that I need more of in my own life or I want to understand more about. And what I found is that it typically resonates with a lot of people, but it's very therapeutic for me. So I'm just constantly learning and growing.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and I really resonated with what you said. It's honestly such a gift and such a rare find to find a program like yours that's supporting whole self, whole life, whole self. And one of the things I want to talk about more about mindfulness is really how it changes how you show up for others in your life, in your workplace. It changes how you show up for your partner, for your parents, for your family. I'm not perfect. This is always kind of the hard way to talk about it, right? Because I'm kind of preaching this, but I'm gonna mess up every day.
Yeah.
So that's the balance of just saying, I know that I can be better.
Yeah.
When I have this kind of boundary of space for myself.
Yes.
Where I'm allowing myself to say, like, what do I need, and how do I fulfill that need? How do I take that break?
How do you define mindfulness?
Yeah. Oh, good. I'm glad you asked that. Yeah. So there's a lot of words out there and it's hard to know where it lands. I think mindfulness, in a non-academic kind of definition, is really just showing up moment to moment and not judging how you feel. Like, oh gosh, I should really be doing this, or not feeling, having that self-compassion.
Yeah.
To say, okay, here's where we're at. This is what's happening. Or I'm noticing that I feel tense. I notice that I feel frustrated with my kids.
So it's so funny just what human beings do with words, right? Like I know I want to actually talk about the word meditation too, because that can hold a lot of things for a lot of people. But before we take a break, so mindfulness, would you describe it if you were going to break it down? I think people are used to the term mindfulness. It's being used a lot
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
But before, I would say people generally would think of it as like something that had to do with yoga or
Yeah.
something like that. But it
Yeah.
sounds like the way that you describe it, it's really about being present and
Yeah.
about being sort of in your body and
Yeah.
paying attention
Right.
to maybe how you're feeling or the
Right.
physical feelings that you're having or emotional and just being very aware.
Yeah, I think one easy way to describe it is we can all remember times where we've driven somewhere and you don't even remember the
Mm-hmm.
drive. You don't remember where you parked.
Yeah.
Suddenly
Yes.
an hour goes by and you're
Yeah.
like, whoa, I just kind of spaced out there.
Just total autopilot.
And I think just mindfulness is recognizing that there's an option of
Mm-hmm.
being present in your own thoughts
Mm-hmm.
and getting to decide, really what you let in
Yeah.
and how you want to spend that time
Mm-hmm.
instead of just checking out until the next moment when you have to engage. I think it's that conscious building of your own emotional life.
That's so fascinating. So one of the things that I find hard, like you're saying, we have such a crazy, busy
Yeah.
world and our schedules now are insane. And so just as you said, like I catch myself on autopilot all the time. I mean,
Yeah.
whether it's on my commute and I try to do things like I will listen to podcasts, I'll listen to
Hmm.
certain music, but inevitably that staying present I find the most challenging. Like
Yeah.
unless I truly have the conditions set up where I am fully like I have a room in my house where I go that
Hmm.
I have set up with candles and dim light and I sort of sit there every morning to do
Hmm.
journaling. And in that moment, it's really
Yeah.
easy for me to
Easy.
be, very present and intentional and I feel like $1,000,000 when I
Right.
end that time.
Right.
It's like I have set up my morning, which is true. But then throughout the day, I mean by the time
Yeah.
my kids go to bed and I settle in for the night, it's like, oh my gosh, I've been running like from the
Yeah.
time that sort of quiet time in the morning ended to the time I get in bed, I'm running. And so
Hmm.
we are going to take a really quick break, but after I would love to talk about just some simple things that we can do to implement mindfulness throughout the day. And then I also want to really tackle the word meditation.
Okay.
And I'd
Great.
love just to kind of peel that back for
Love
people.
it. Love it.
Okay, everyone, we're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we will keep going with Leah Kaepernick. And once again, you are listening to Sam Willing on the Imperfection Wins Show, KKNW 1150. Hey, everybody, it's me, Sam. Many of you know that one of my greatest joys in life is handing out small, perfectly imperfect wooden hearts. That's right, I said perfectly imperfect. These are the words that came to mind when I held one of these handmade hearts in my hand for the first time. These beautifully crafted, imperfect hearts are made by my friend Gary. Fate brought us together, and ordering hearts from him and giving them to anyone who needs one has been a joyful part of my journey. The hearts serve as a physical reminder that things don't need to be perfect to be meaningful. Check out my website, samwilling.com/imperfect hearts for the whole heart story, to place an order, or make a donation. 100% of the proceeds go towards the mission. Don't forget, that's samwilling.com.
Hi, I'm Brenda Michaels.
And I'm Rob Spears, and we're excited to tell you about our changes for 2020. Conscious Talk is moving to Tuesdays, Wednesday, and Friday at our usual time, 7 to 8 a.m. right here on KKNW.
We'll continue to bring you the leading edge of new thought and practical knowledge from natural health to spiritual growth.
Don't forget, Conscious Talk is moving to Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 7 a.m. right here on KKNW 1150 a.m.
My mother was always very active and independent, and she was familiar with her neighborhood. But one day, she stopped at the stop sign for much longer than usual. She wasn't even really sure where she was at.
It's important for you to talk to someone about it. I felt so much better after my son told me, Mom, we'll figure it out.
When something feels different, it could be Alzheimer's. Now is the time to talk. Visit alz.org/ourstories to learn more. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Multicultural, multidimensional even. Alternative Talk 1150.
Welcome back to the Imperfection Wins Show. I'm your host, Sam Willing, and we are back with Leah Kaepernick, founder of Meditate, Move, Make. And before we ended, we were talking about mindfulness. And so I have so many more questions about mindfulness. I'm sure some of you do too. So we're going to keep talking about that. And Leah, again, thank you so much for being here today. Already, the nuggets that you've dropped for us are so awesome. And we were talking about how we are mindful. What are some ways, even if I start the day being very mindful and present, you know, a couple hours in, I'm sort of like coming apart at the seams. I mean, not really, that's dramatic, but yes, I get caught up.
Yeah.
So
no,
how
that's
can we
normal.
do it?
That's normal, and that's okay. And the first thing is to just sort of acknowledge, like, hey, that's really human. That means I'm human. And meditation and mindfulness, and we'll get into the definitions of the two here shortly, but it's really more about approaching it with non-judgment and not trying to be perfect, not trying to force that. It's great, like you said before the break here, if you have that perfect room with the candles, you just maybe had a juice cleanse, you did some yoga.
Yes.
You feel like you still have your
Amazing.
vacation tan, like everything's
Yes.
great in the world. Great, amazing. We all love those moments. But, you know, that's not really our day-to-day experience.
Yeah.
So, you know, how can you have that vacation moment without kind of being on vacation? And for me, it's simple, right? Like I have to do the dishes. I have to fill the car. I have to do the work things. I have to prep for my Pilates class. And what that means is just like choosing to sort of enjoy and be present with my work. I really don't like doing the dishes. And so for me, that's like the extra special challenge of being like, okay, how can I show up for this? Like, it's not going to feel good in my body if I mentally reject this.
Yeah.
So taking a breath and being like, wow, the water is warm and feels amazing in this cold Seattle weather. This soap smells amazing. Like really getting into the granularity of that experience. And appreciating it for what it is, right?
Is it okay if you're having like that experience? For example, I don't like doing dishes either or folding laundry. But I have to do both. So what if your joy or your gratitude in that experience comes from a place of knowing how good you're going to feel when it's done? Like for me, I love a clean house. So I get really fixated on not the chore itself, but I put some headphones in and listen to music or a good podcast. And then I think how great it's going to feel to sort of have everything in order.
I love that.
Okay.
And that's like setting a goal and being future minded doesn't mean you're not in the present moment, right? You can think about, ooh, this is going to feel so good when I'm done, like a hard workout. You know, like maybe there are moments in the workout where you're like, ugh, this is not feeling good.
Yeah.
But the joy is like afterwards, right? The joy is in the accomplishment. The joy is in showing up for yourself and doing it anyway. So I don't know. For me, it's kind of about finding those moments every day instead of like imposing more rigor and more schedule and more to-dos on my list. If that makes sense.
It totally does. And I think one of the things that I talk with people a lot when I'm coaching in a business setting, for individual employees or leaders is just mindset and changing your sort of have to's to choose to's. And so I see that can kind of run with this mindfulness thing, right? Because it's very, like I always say, there are very few things in life that you actually have to do. I mean, sure, there are things that you maybe should do or there will be consequences if you don't, but you don't have to. Like everything you're doing is a choice.
Yeah.
And so being in those moments, like you're saying, and sort of intentionally bringing yourself back to gratitude or being present or finding joy in those small experiences. I think,
Yeah, and I mean, I want to talk too about mindfulness versus meditation.
Yes, please.
Because it's so, like, even for me, I've been doing this for a while. It's still like, oh yeah, what's the difference again? Really, so mindfulness is really showing up in the moment. You can be moving, you can be
Mm-hmm.
talking, you can be having a frustrating conversation,
Mm-hmm.
and just kind of finding that space in that moment. I put that in the mindfulness bucket.
Okay.
Meditation is a little more intentional. It doesn't have to be this big go to India trip, where you're reading Eat, Pray, Love again and trying to reconnect with that awesome
Yep.
book, right? But it's more like, okay, I have 5 minutes, put everything down, maybe grab your favorite meditation app
Mm-hmm.
and get into your breath.
Mm-hmm.
Find your breath, open up, feel what it feels like to breathe. What does it feel like to oxygenate your own body from head to toe and have that little mini moment?
Mm-hmm.
It can be longer. There are benefits to practicing longer. One of the struggles when you're getting started, though, is like, how can I do that? Like,
Yeah. I'm glad we're talking about meditation because the word meditation, sort of what I was saying earlier about it's funny how we associate things with words. And I think the word meditation, the word mindfulness, a lot of those words are now used so often and
mm-hmm,
there's much more awareness around them.
mm-hmm,
But the word meditation for many people, particularly different generations, you hear the word meditation and you immediately think religion.
yeah,
And so that's been one of the things, I am someone who I am trying to practice meditation
mm-hmm,
and I also pray.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so
yeah,
I sort of have both of those things existing in my life together and I don't feel like they're at odds.
mm-hmm,
But I know for some people there is
yeah,
confusion or a struggle around that. So I wonder, like for you,
yeah.
you have learned so much about meditation. Is it religious? Is it
Yeah.
not religious? Can it be either?
Mm-hmm.
I would love it if
Yeah.
you just talk about that.
Yeah. Okay. So I grew up in Minneapolis, and I come from like a small Lutheran background,
Mm-hmm.
Norwegian Lutheran
Mm-hmm.
background, and we have particular ideas that I realized are a little bit different than where other folks live or come from. There's not a
Mm-hmm.
lot of Lutherans out here in the West Coast. There's some, but
Mm-hmm.
like defining like, oh, how am I different? I think,
Mm-hmm.
and then grounding into what are my roots? Like, what were the
Mm-hmm.
foundations of how I was brought up? What does that mean? What are those values?
Mm-hmm.
And then deciding, like, through the coming of age process that we all go through, like, what am I going to hold on to here? What matters?
Yeah.
And then what am I maybe going to grow and transform into something else that
Mm-hmm.
feels more like me?
Yeah.
So for me, it wasn't like either or kind of process. It was an additive, like, I have this, I've come from this, it's changed over time.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm adding this ability to bring breath and
Yes.
calm and presence.
Yeah. So it's really focused on the breathing and the calmness.
Yeah, and this is relatively new. Secular meditation in the West is really new.
Mm-hmm.
John Kabat-Zinn really started the formal practice out of University of Massachusetts Medical School back in I think in the late 70s. And he was really the person that sort of took the foundational Buddhist teachings and said, cool, this is really effective. Science is showing it's effective,
Mm-hmm.
but we aren't all living as Buddhist monks.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
that's great. But, what are the health benefits here? How can we take this and bring it in positive ways that are
Mm-hmm.
non-religious to the masses?
So what are the health benefits?
Yeah.
I know you just mentioned that.
Oh gosh, there's
Yeah.
so many, and I'm not a researcher or scientist, so this is kind of the area I struggle
That's
with as
okay.
an arts person.
Just break it down for us.
Less stress, less anxiety, less depression, better sleep, better relationships. A lot of new studies are indicating reduced heart disease. The American Heart Association just recently endorsed meditation as a healthy lifestyle choice. There's a lot of folks coming around and saying, yeah, this is really important.
This is important.
It's like the You Got Milk campaigns of
Right.
the early 90s,
Right.
like get your calcium.
Yep.
So I'm excited because everywhere I'm looking now at the checkout stands, everywhere you're seeing this normalized as part of our
Yes.
conversations of how do we bring ourselves this kind of breath and peace?
Yeah. It does. I do find for myself, it makes a huge difference. And I'm curious some of the
Yeah.
things you've seen. So we touched on earlier that you actually go in and help corporations now
Yeah.
put
Yeah.
mindfulness programs in place. And so can you just give me some examples of some
Sure.
of the changes that you've seen in individuals that have actually started,
Yeah.
um, practicing mindfulness
Yes.
and meditation?
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the biggest things I saw at HBO was just this. Well, I started it with a curiosity of, these teams have been working together for over 5 years, and some of these folks don't even know each other's names or their kids' names. And, no fault of their own. They're heads down engineers programming and getting it done. And it's just really, it's not that kind of social environment, right? So, no fault. But I had a curiosity of like, if we just take a moment and breathe together,
Mm-hmm.
what does that do for us as individuals in the workplace? And what does it do for folks connecting?
Mm-hmm.
And I saw that we had more casual conversations. They were still getting the work done, but it was with like a spirit of joyfulness almost, where it was like, oh, it's okay for me to be me here.
Right.
It's okay for me to be present to my own needs, to have my own voice, and to share something that's maybe a little bit funny feeling or
Mm-hmm.
difficult or different. Because, hey, like you just said that in the group that you also are doing that,
Right.
right? So that was like really, really cool for me to
Yeah.
see.
That connection, I think, in my work too, I've just found that connection to each other. I mean, it's so interesting because all of the research out there shows that we are the most digitally connected
Yeah.
that we've ever been, and yet we are suffering from loneliness in
Yes.
like epidemic rates. And so I think it's been really on my mind
Yeah.
because I've been really reading a lot about compassionate leadership, and I talk a lot about that. And one of the things that I read recently in a study that Cigna came out with was just that loneliness. We know that loneliness in America is in epidemic
Mm-hmm.
levels, but it's not just in life; it's actually at work. And
Yep.
so for me, it was sort of this aha moment where it's like loneliness, you can actually be surrounded by people and have a great job and be thriving professionally and not be thriving emotionally
Yeah.
because you are lonely and you're not connected.
Right.
And so I love the idea of intentionally bringing sort of a calmness. Like
Yeah.
I think about from a human resources standpoint, what would having a more calm
Mm-hmm.
workforce, a more
Mm-hmm.
connected workforce do for a company? I think it would be huge.
Yeah, and let me give a little bit more of a specific story here. So, I didn't really know how to lead a mindfulness group when I brought this to
Mhm.
HBO, and it felt kind of like, whoa. And for me, it felt like, okay, but that doesn't mean you don't do it. It still means you show up and
Right.
try and bring what you know, and then we grow from there. And so the start was, hey guys, what do you know? What do I know? What do we want to talk about
Mhm.
here? And just empowering multiple voices at the table felt like, oh, like instead of just being in a work environment where I'm waiting for someone to finish talking so
Yeah.
I can get a point in, or you're getting cut off because the meeting's over and you have to rush out of your conference room, instead of that dynamic being how you know me now as the person that is able to share maybe a more intimate experience, a
Yeah.
personal story. When you have that breath and space, like
Mhm.
how do you open up differently?
It's so true. And I have found that when you start connecting with people that way, it really makes it easier to sort of create an environment of empathy and compassion.
Yeah,
And you give each other grace, you
I love
support
that.
each other. Yeah, I
Yeah.
know. I love it. I can see how a movement like this could create, in the very beginning, I touched on how small
Yeah.
actions, seemingly small actions, can create these ripple effects that
Mm-hmm.
we don't anticipate. I
Yeah.
can see how bringing this into a work environment or a school or, my gosh, a family
Yeah.
could make a huge difference.
It's everything. If you
Yeah.
feel like you have the space to be heard and to
Yeah.
be yourself.
Yeah.
It's the difference in a work environment of, oh yeah, workplaces and break rooms used to be just chips and pop, right?
Yes.
And now, or soda, as you say out here. Now it's like, oh, there's fruit. Everybody knows there should be fruit
right,
there.
fruit,
So
water. Yeah.
it feels like that, right?
Yeah.
Like eventually
It's
at
an
some point,
evolution.
wouldn't it be cool if we all just were like, yeah,
Yeah.
of course, there's a mindfulness group at work.
Meditation
Yeah,
room.
I would love
it.
that.
So we are going to take a short break, but when we come back, I want to give people a few simple ways that they can start meditation, start practicing mindfulness, and then I want to make sure we have a chance to tell people how they can work with you. Okay, everybody, we're going to take a quick break. Once again, you are listening to Sam Willing on the Imperfection Wins Show.
This show is sponsored by Urban Restoration, the Eastside's premier builder for remodeling, new construction, and so much more. With over 20 years of experience, the team at Urban Restoration has built a foundation of integrity, trust, superior craftsmanship, and personal accountability to clients. Whether you are building a new home, doing a total home remodel, or even a small project, the experienced team at Urban Restoration will walk you through the process and leave you with the results you desire. Client satisfaction and relationships rule at Urban Restoration. If you are located on the Greater East Side and looking for a contractor you can trust, visit the Urban Restoration website at ur-build.com. That's the letter U, the letter R-build.com for contact information and to check out pictures of their amazing craftsmanship. Again, that's the letter U, the letter R-build.com for Urban Restoration.
Hey everyone, it's me, Sam. I'm so excited to announce my speaking focus for 2020. After stepping back and really thinking about what all of my work is leading me towards, I've realized that there is an overarching theme of compassion. This year, I'll be speaking to corporations, schools, churches, women's groups, and more on the subject of compassionate leadership. The world needs compassion now more than ever. And it's time we slow down and start valuing relationships and people over economics in business and in life. If you or your organization are looking for some inspiration and are ready to hit the refresh button on your leadership legacy, improve your business and your life, contact me at samwilling.com to explore working together and how taking intentional action in small ways can lead to big changes for businesses and, most importantly, for people. Don't forget, that's samwilling.com.
Need help getting started with self-help? You came to the right place. Alternative Talk 1150.
Welcome back to the Imperfection Wins Show. I'm your host, Sam Willing, and we are back with Leah Kaepernick, founder of Meditate, Move, Make, and we are having the best conversation about mindfulness and meditation. I love all of it. But before we have to end the show, I want to make sure you all have a few ways and tools that help you sort of move forward into practicing mindfulness and meditation if you want to do that. So, Leah, can you just give us maybe some simple ways that we can start? Where do we start?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I'm going to make a couple exercise analogies here. We just had the new year and we all were super gung-ho, maybe about New Year's resolutions. Got to do this, got to work out for an hour a day, got to get cardio, weightlift. You want to do all the things. And if you're approaching a mindfulness program, you probably have that same energy of wanting to just get after it. And really the best thing you can do is slow down, no surprise.
Mm-hmm.
So first, I think just noticing that you want it or you desire it.
Mm-hmm.
Giving yourself permission to relax like before bedtime routine. I have permission to take 10 minutes off during my day. Step aside, turn on an app, maybe play some like background nature sounds. Start there.
Okay.
From there, if you want to do something a little bit more formal, maybe make a little special place in your house if that's important for you to have
Mhm.
that visual cue of like, oh yeah, this is an option for me today.
Mhm.
Try that. I have a beautiful meditation space in my home that I never use, like truth be told.
Yeah.
I usually just grab my favorite blankie, a cup of
Yeah.
coffee, my favorite book, my headphones, and I sit on my
Mhm.
couch or I stay in my bed in the morning and I give myself permission to do 5 to 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's a little more formal. I don't have a screen going on.
Mhm.
I'm not visually engaged with anything other than trying to breathe.
Okay.
And if I'm feeling really strong, maybe I'll do it on my own. I'll guide myself through a silent meditation. But I think the first step really is to find a guided meditation you like on a very simple app. There's so many out there that makes sense for you. You're
Okay.
resonating with the voice, you're resonating with the message.
Yeah.
It feels good. Don't stick with anything that doesn't feel like you, right?
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's what I've found. So I've been working on implementing mindfulness and meditation over probably the last maybe about 6 to 8 months,
Yeah.
and I've tried a few different things. I've tried a few different apps. You're right, the voice on the app
Mm-hmm.
makes a huge difference for
Yeah.
me. I've also found some playlists on Spotify.
Mm-hmm.
So there's one particular by Jason Stevenson, and
Yeah.
he has a lot of meditation music on
Yeah.
there. I find and I'll use, now I kind of vacillate between an app or the music, and it completely depends
Yeah.
on my state, how relaxed
Right.
I am, what I need at the moment.
Yeah.
Do you have any apps that I'm sure you've
Yeah.
looked at all of them?
Yeah.
So do you have sort of any that you would recommend people start with?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So let's see. Mine's a little bit more formalized. I really
Okay.
stick with like the founders of the Western mindfulness movement.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, that's John Kabat-Zinn. He's really the guy that formalized a lot of this in Western practice.
Okay.
So he has a great series of apps. I think there's 3 of them. They're a little bit more expensive,
Mhm.
but it's simple. Instead of being overwhelmed with thousands of options and hundreds of teachers and sort of all the options out there in the
Yeah.
free space that is online, he really pulls it down into this is research based.
Okay.
This is proven over time. Here's your 5 minutes. Here's your 10 minutes. And you can go from there. You can go
Okay.
upwards of an hour.
Okay.
So I like that. If I'm feeling less formal, like Spotify or any of those podcast
Mhm.
stations, they'll have Sonic Yogi, who does
Oh,
like a
yeah.
lot of like resonance, like background nature music.
Mhm.
And if I'm just trying to relax, that's my go-to.
That's a good one.
Yeah, Sonic Yogi.
I use Calm.
Oh yeah.
And I have, you know what, actually I really love on Calm is they have bedtime stories.
Ooh.
And I don't use Calm. I usually use Jason Stevenson, the meditation music,
Okay.
to meditate in the morning. But the Calm app, the bedtime stories,
Yeah.
I listen to those, especially if I'm having a hard time falling asleep or
Yeah.
if I'm feeling a little amped about anything. I put them on. They are so fabulous. I
Ooh.
mean, they have like Matthew McConaughey's
Whoa.
voice. They have all different
That's a good
voices.
voice.
I mean, that's a pretty good
Yeah.
voice
Yeah.
for a
I love it.
meditation or a bedtime story.
Yeah.
But I actually find I don't think I've ever made it through a full story. And they're all about
Yeah.
nature and things
Right.
like that. Anyway, so that helps
Calming.
me too.
I love it.
It's really
That's a great
calming.
app.
So your point is in all of this, we can start sort of where we're at.
Yes.
And it's about starting small, and there's a lot of tools to help
Yep.
us do that. We have about 4 minutes left, and I want to make sure that you have a chance to
Sure.
talk about the mindfulness program that you are launching. So will you
Yeah.
just tell people about that and then how they can get involved?
Sure. Yeah, yeah. So locally in Seattle area, we have a ton of great resources and amazing thinkers and folks who have studied with the best of the best for their lives.
Yeah.
Mindfulness Northwest in Fremont area is a really incredible group. I think they're coming out of Bellingham traditionally,
Okay.
but they've got the Seattle office, and they offer the full MBSR program, which is an 8-week immersive, once a week program where you show up and you practice for like 3 or 4 hours with this cohort, and you're all going through this program together. And this is the one that's endorsed by the University of Massachusetts
Okay.
Medical Center. And so in these 8 weeks, they have clinical results that they've seen over time. So I'm launching into this to be more formalized.
Okay.
And I'm excited to see what the results will be.
And did you tell me it kicks off today?
It's actually tomorrow
Oh,
on
it's
Tuesdays,
tomorrow.
but they have a lot of programs. If you can't make it in person,
Okay.
they have online programs. I mean, it's just such a loving, wonderful group.
Okay. That is so
Yeah.
amazing. So tell us how people can connect with you
Yeah.
and work with you or just find out more.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I have a lot going on, but I would really love to connect with anyone who's interested for corporate level mindfulness, any kind of personal practice things. I'm a doula, producer, Pilates teacher. There's a bunch there you can pick from. I also just want to say real quick, so Meditate Move Make is my website, or
Okay.
leahkaepernick.com.
Okay.
Also on Instagram, leahlu202. But, also if you want a little bit more of a regiment for your routine and mindfulness, check out what's happening with this Jack Kornfield and Tara Brock program. They have a 40-day program that's free online, and we can post that link as a follow-up.
Oh, great. Okay.
But it's fabulous. It will get you started and keep you going.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And Leah, we always end with a quote. Do
Okay.
you have a favorite?
I do. I'm just going to keep it super simple. I heard this quote that said, be, don't try to become.
Ah,
Yeah.
that's very good. Be, don't try to become.
Yeah.
So be and be present.
Yeah.
Right? Like
Yeah.
that's what we're
Just
talking
be.
about. Be
Just
present.
be you.
Okay, listeners, that's a wrap. And I hope you all enjoyed it as much as I did. I definitely got some awesome information and some tidbits to weave into my life. And if you are interested in getting more familiar with me, my mission, my content, you can find my first season of Imperfection Wins on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts, or on my website, samwilling.com. You can also follow me on Instagram at imperfection.wins. Join me next week when we'll talk with Shay Bearfield, an inspirational woman with a captivating story. I can't wait for the conversation, and until then, be kind, have courage, and give yourself and others grace. Have a great Monday.
The views expressed on this program are those of the host, guests, and callers, and not necessarily